Good evening all, and welcome to the first Koinonia and Coca of the spring semester. My name is Greg Miller and I work in the Office of Campus Ministry here at Lemoyne. Tonight is an opportunity for all of us to open our hearts and minds so that we may grow in our faith as individuals and as a Lemoyne community. We are blessed to have Dr. Shawn Ward, Associate Professor in the Psychology Department, tonight. Dr. Ward's involvement on campus extends beyond the classroom as he serves as the faculty athletic representative. He regularly serves as a lector at Lemoyne Liturgies and sings in the chapel choir. And he traveled with Lemoyne students in January of 2013 to volunteer at the Working Boys Center in Quito, Ecuador. There's plenty more that I could say about Dr. Ward's invaluable presence on and off Lemoyne's campus, but I will let him share some of that himself. The format for tonight is as follows. If you have not already done so, please help yourself to some hot cocoa and mini marshmallows over there. Following Dr. Ward's presentation, there will be an opportunity for questions. And if you have a question, and you'd like to ask Dr. Ward that question, we ask that you please write down your question on one of the pink slips of paper at your table. Questions will be collected and chosen for Dr. Ward to respond to after his initial presentation. And without further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Ward onto the stage, and happy to say that not only is Dr. Ward a co-worker of mine, but a good friend and a great man. So thank you, Shawn.
Thanks. Greg failed to mention that he and I went on that trip together to Quito just a year ago now, and good times. We had some good times at the equator. I'm truly amazed that on a weather night like this, you came out, you're here to listen to my story. Feel a little pressure now, I gotta make it a little more exciting, because I get the word boring written down here a couple times. So we'll try our best. I guess it's one thing that's important to say is this is not something that I do often. While I consider myself a person of faith, I don't necessarily share it in this kind of format. So I'm going to try to show you how the ways maybe I do that in a more comfortable way. So bear with me if I stumble a little bit as we go through this. I'm what they call a cradle Catholic. So from birth to this moment, I've considered myself a Catholic. I have received all the sacraments. As I taught my children, all but one or two that one I will get sooner or later. That's usually later. I'm not choosing to be ordained. So I've got all the ones I can get as a male in our church to this point. I was an altar boy, and I do say that because back in my day, there were no servers, we were just boys. There were just boys. And I'm old enough that I was actually trained in the old liturgy. We had our backs to the congregation, and literally when I got past the test and all that jazz, learned some of the mumbling Latin that we were supposed to mumble, they turned the altar around. So most of my career I was facing the congregation, which was certainly much more comfortable. I also had the great fortune, my parents made tremendous sacrifice to send me to Catholic school. I attended Catholic school from kindergarten all the way through my master's degree. St. Joseph's School, blue and gold, in case you're wondering. And we were, our 8th grade basketball team had a perfect record, 0-16. But it was fun. Don Bosco Prep, taught by the Salesian priest. Went to another Catholic college not too far from here, Siena College, in the Franciscan tradition. Left there, went to Fordham, earned my master's degree at Fordham University, and it wasn't until I left to go get my PhD at Temple that was my first exposure to public education. So being Catholic, participating in the Catholic Church, and all those things, I've been doing that for a long time. I mean, as long as I can remember, I'm Catholic. Each of the, I guess, times that I really started to understand my faith, let's say, or really engage my faith, and I look to my high school years when I really got to that. There were certain themes that each of these sort of phases resonate for me. And the first is this idea that we're made in the image and likeness of God. That we're made in the image and likeness of God. Part of the catechism is that expression. And you get to college and you start to challenge that and kick that around and explore that a little bit. It's an interesting idea. Still kicking that around. I do believe we're made in the image and likeness of God. And so that when we look at someone else, we're seeing God. I do believe that. That's an important thing that takes me through some difficult days, but also brings me great joy when I look at some people. College was a good time for me. The Franciscans were a group of people that my parents were very fond of, and I'm a pleaser. I grew up in, you make your mom and dad proud, so going to a Franciscan school was really special for them. It was a really good experience. It was so good that I met my wife there. The very first weekend we started school there. And didn't think she was right for me then, but that's another story for another time. But she's also Catholic, and our relationship grew. But while I was there, as some of you are trying to figure out, what do you do? What's your vocation? What do you do in life? And I had a conversation with several Franciscans about the possibility of priesthood, becoming a friar. And they all knew that I had this relationship with Mary, and we were now identified as one of those Siena couples that, met there, got married, and all that. So, a real good friend of ours who actually officiated our wedding said to me, Shawn, we need as many good dads as we need good priests. So if you are in love, and she is the one, then that's where you have to be. So that's one vocation, my family, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But also while there at Siena and studying in my coursework, as some of you know, I was a psychology major, pursued psychology some more, and I really loved to teach. I really do love to teach. I learned that love while I was there, learned about it, began to explore it a little bit. Left there and had an opportunity to teach at my high school alma mater, which was a lot of fun, and realized that's really what I wanted to do eventually. But I also knew that I needed to get some more schooling. So going to get my PhD, hey David, just seemed natural, and blessed to have a partner who was willing to support me. So Mary and I got married, and I started graduate school. And right off the bat, started teaching. Teaching comes in a lot of different forms, and so certainly what I do here is a big part of that. That's definitely. But there are other times, other places you can teach, and right from the time we got married, I began to volunteer, participate in our parish, and taught catechism. I was a catechist, and met a lot of good people in our parish, St. Andrew's in Langhorne, PA. And fifth graders, sacraments, 30 students, Wednesday nights, 1982. And had taught catechism all the way up till last year. This school year is the first year I haven't taught it. I've retired to to pursue some other things in our parish, and it's just right for our family now that I'm not doing it. What's important to know is most people, if and some of you maybe saw this in your own experiences, moms and dads get asked to teach, and so they volunteer and they do their own child in school. So we just got married. We didn't have any children, and they needed volunteers. And I said, well, I think I could teach, So I got involved. So I was one of those few people that wasn't a parent, but had 30 fifth graders on Wednesday nights. It was a ball. It was a blast. It really worked out well. Still in touch with some of those young people. They're now, one's a PhD in political science in Michigan, believe it or not. And anyway, so we move up here to Central New York, 1987. Got this wonderful job here at Lemoyne College. Had one child. Nora was one. Just one. And on the move up, we found out we had another one on the way. So things were really good. Teaching was good. Got right involved in our parish. We belonged to St. Anne's out in Manlius, and continued to teach. Thursday afternoons, 8th graders. No one else wanted to teach 8th graders. And these 8th graders get bused from their school, to church. They really like to do this, and be taught. But my schedule allowed me to do that, and it was a lot of fun. I share this because what happened ultimately, my children got old enough that I could be their teacher. They caught up to me. And so we had a little deal that I would teach each child for 2 years, and then we move on to the next one. And kept doing that. Now, it's important you know we have 4 children, and was doing that very religiously, kept the pattern going. And it just felt right. And then all of a sudden, got to the youngest, and was going to teach Brian for 2 years. And our 10th grader, the second oldest, came home one day and said, that the confirmation program has terrible teachers. And as a teenager can be, she's ranting and raving. And she turns to me and said, Dad, you should teach confirmation. And I said, well, Aaron, I'm booked. I got my contract with Brian 2 years. I can't. I already got one. Aaron is a pretty savvy kid. So what does she do? She calls her grandmother, unbeknownst to me. She calls my mother, and she gives her the same talk about how there's this need for good teachers. Dad's a good teacher. He should be teaching it. He's not teaching it. I don't understand why he's not teaching it. No. I don't know anything about this conversation. A couple hours later, the phone rings. It's Mom. Hi, Mom. How are you? Good. Shawn, I need to talk to you about something. I'm like, oh, crap. This can't be good. As an adult, not good. Something's wrong with Mom and Dad. Why aren't you going to teach Aaron? I'm like, what? Well, your daughter called me and told me that, you're not going to do this, and she's obviously very engaged, and it's important. You know it's important to them, right? I said, yeah, Mom, I know, Mom. I've been doing this, since 1982, Mom. I know this is important. She said, well, I don't get it. I don't understand why you're not doing it. I said, well, Mom, you need to understand. You need to know that I made a commitment to Brian. She said, well, come on. I'd like, really? I said, and unbeknownst to Erin, I've already signed up to do the 10th grade for her, but we don't want her to know that. So she's like, oh, okay. Thanks. Bye. So sure enough, we drop off Erin that first Sunday of religious ed, and she's not happy. She's not happy. She's out of the car, and I drive around the other side of the church and park the car and get out, go down, and she said, I thought you might do this. And I said, well, how could I not? How could I not? When your child wants you to share their faith with them, together, you just cannot. So, as it turned out, the last 10 years, I basically did the confirmation program with some other really good friends. We were a great team. It's a very unique program out there. We stay with a group for 2 years consecutively and get them prepared for being an adult. And I give Aaron credit for showing me that was the right thing to do. That's where my gifts were needed, and I could carry that through. Now, I finished up my contract with Brian. I didn't break the contract. We did that, and ultimately he got into the confirmation program, and that was a really good thing. So, the image and likeness of God, that's the theme kind of out of high school. And coming out of college and my early years of being a parent, St. Francis has a quote. It goes something like this: preach the gospel always, and if necessary, use words. Preach the gospel always, and if need to, use words. So it's our action. It's what we do that's important. And if you know me, you know my family is the most important thing to me. I am a boring guy, for the most part. The biggest risk I probably ever took was to bring 4 children into the world. It's a lot of work. It still is a lot of work, but it's really a labor of love. So my family is very important to me. And so sharing faith with them has always been important to me. And so being able to teach them and experience it with them really has made a difference for me. Because I think when you teach, you learn. When you teach, you grapple with ideas, and then you have to explain them to someone else. And it's in that exchange, as you listen to people, as you talk to them, that you get a deeper understanding of whatever it might be. And so being able to do confirmation program and retreats with my children, and the fact that they didn't mind that Dad was doing those things with them was one of the coolest things I ever experienced. And then they moved on, and I stayed, as I said, to recently retire from that experience. So family is really important to me. And one of the things that family teaches you is your limitations and your strengths. And as I said, you want to pass on things to your children, and parents will often quibble amongst themselves, if they're good at something, my mother gave that to me, and, versus the father, right? So in our household, certainly, if they have any academic ability, Mary takes full credit for that. Any athletic ability, she takes full credit for that. Most of the good things she takes credit for, whether it's genetic or not, I don't know. But passing on your faith has always been important to us. And I don't think we were hung up in that they had to be Catholic, even though they all went through their sacraments. We wanted them to be Catholic, but we weren't, they had to be. And of course, Erin, I mentioned Erin, right, to you earlier, and she challenged that right away. She got involved in Young Life. She was the first one of our children to get involved, and got very involved. This is again one of Erin's things. She wants to have 15 high school students on a Friday morning at 6:30, Friday morning at our house for Bible study. Like, really, Erin? 6:30 on a Friday morning? They're gonna come? She's like, yeah, Dad, they come. And if we have it at our house, like, we're really close to the high school and it really would be good. So for the next 6 years, on a Friday morning, we had, and I didn't do any of this. There's people who come in. There's people. Bring in people, staff. They do this, in our house. They have breakfast, the whole bit. It was like amazing, amazing. So Erin's challenging us. She's asking questions about her faith. And, Mary and I are worried about her. And we go and talk to our pastor, which is always a good thing to do, right? And we had this wonderful priest, Father Kevin, and he told us, he said, as long as they love Jesus, you're good. As long as they love Jesus. Don't worry if they go to a church, a building, belong or don't belong, but if they love Jesus, you're good. We're like, really? That's it? He says, yeah. He says, don't force them, don't make them. If they love Jesus, you're good. And I say, okay. So Mary and I get a chance to take a deep breath. And what's interesting is all 4 of our children have expressed their faith differently. The oldest, maybe because she's the oldest, I would say is most traditional in her faith. The rest have explored, have tried different things, have all done, as Miranda has met some of them, and been involved in young life, and very involved in young life. Our daughter, Corrine, who just graduated last year, she leads out in Casanova. So they get up on, I guess, Wednesday mornings at 6 o'clock. So she drives out from Manlius to Casanova to lead Bible study with a bunch of high school kids. Who does that? Right? Who does that? And they still participate in our church whenever they can, and so on. So it's I cannot tell you how fulfilling it is to watch that, to share that with them. That they're reading the Bible and quoting things to me and say, right, Dad, you know that passage, right? Like, I'm not sure. I'll check, And so it's not something I guess we did directly, but as Father Kevin says, as long as they love Jesus, you're good. You're good. So, image and likeness of God. Preach the gospel whenever you can. If you have to, use words. And love Jesus. That's what our family has kind of taught us. They were going to sneeze there. Yeah. When Greg and I were talking about preparing for this talk, and I mentioned to him that really I had a boring life when it comes to faith. I mean, it's been rather ordinary, and did all the sacraments, had this beautiful family. They're all involved in their faith. I mean, we can talk about faith. We're comfortable with it. They continue to receive their sacraments. 2 of our daughters are married, and they got married in our church. Their choice, which again is very heartwarming. Expensive, but that's another story. But they said, Greg, it's boring. You really want to know, And he said, no, really like you to share. I said, okay. And I think the last few years of my life here, and Greg mentioned our trip to Quito and reaching out to students in that. I've also had a chance to go with Young Life to El Salvador twice. They do a mission trip. They're actually there now. They left today. They go every February break. And they've been working in this one village and making the water better and the living conditions better. And it's just an amazing thing. Again, taking high school students to a place that's 90 degrees. We're going to sleep on the floor. We're not going to have showers available to us. We use a drum of water and a bucket over your head. We're going to eat food that we're not really sure about, And they say, yeah, I want to go. I want to go. And I'm going to raise money to go. I'm like, really? You want to do this? I'm like, yeah. And they have. And for me, it's been certainly life-changing. To see them wanting to do that gives me the hope and the joy of being involved with them. And again, Karina had gone, heard a lot of good things about it. Brian our youngest, was going to go. And he said, Dad, they need some dad leaders. Do you want to go? How do you say no to your child when they want to share this with you? I said, you sure you want me there with you? Like, you want your dad there? He said, absolutely. That'd be awesome. So we did that 2 years. We did that 2 years in a row. And it was truly exciting and made us a part of a community. I shared with Greg that I was the last person in my family to get a passport, at the age of 51. They'd all been all over the place, and here I am getting a passport. Everybody, including Mary, had been other places. So I think I'm boring, but maybe not. Then I thought about that some more, that comment I made to Greg, and and to wrap up some things or tie some things together. Sometimes, yeah, things are ordinary, and they're not wild or crazy. I think some people could come up here and tell you of an experience they had, and it was life-changing, and it turned their faith 90 degrees. Some could come up here and tell you a story that turned them away from the church. Something went bad, and they no longer have faith. Their questioning has been so strong that they just have abandoned their faith. They don't love Jesus anymore. I don't have that to share with you. You know, I've had a good experience with my faith. But my life is not one that has not been without challenges. But I never thought of them as challenges. I think because my faith has carried me through them. The first time we were in El Salvador, my mother was very, very sick. She died of pancreatic cancer 4 years ago. 4 years ago Sunday. And our beautiful daughter Erin had gotten married right before she passed, and Mom wanted to be at this wedding. And we did everything we possibly could. They live in New Jersey. We did everything we possibly could to get her up here, but it didn't work out. And Mom was okay with that. She was comfortable with it. I was with her the Thursday before, and we talked it through, and she was good. And wedding was on a Saturday. Sunday I was back down with her, sharing pictures with her. She wasn't really good at that point. We didn't realize how bad she was, but she wasn't really good at that moment. I have 5 siblings, so people had different interactions with Mom during her illness. That's another talk for another time. But anyway, I was still going to go on this trip, and I did. And ironically, I got a phone call on Valentine's Day that year. I get myself in a lot of trouble sometimes. You know, we have one phone for the whole group, and so people were using the phone, calling. You know, and then they're high school kids, right? So they got to call their special person, right? And the phone, the battery ran out. So I never called my special person. Man, did I get in trouble. So that's another story. Of course, she snuck a card. She had Brian bring a card to me on Valentine's Day. I didn't. Nothing. So I get reminded of that every so often. Anyway, get a phone call. You need to get home. Mom is not doing well. You need to get home. So here's where faith comes in. You know, the whole group knew, all the adults who were running this program knew my situation, and they knew the risk we were taking me down there. And they made it happen. They got me back home. Flew in to New Jersey on Sunday. Was with Mom Monday. Mom passes that Monday night. And I don't think it would have happened without faith and people understanding and willing to do that. A few years before that, my sister lost a daughter in an unfortunate car accident. And every so often we see these stories in the paper, and we were that family. We were the people in the paper for about a week. But faith got us through that. Father Kevin, our pastor, he called me. I'm in New Jersey again. He called me. Shawn, how you doing? You need anything? How's it going? And again, I at that time didn't realize how much faith was with me, how much faith got me through that, until an opportunity like this, an invitation to reflect on your faith journey. When we talk about retreats, and we talk about liturgies and special liturgies, and we talk about some of our other opportunities, like going on an alternative break, those are opportunities to reflect on our faith. And so, in thinking about what I wanted to share tonight, again, I realized how blessed I am. That I have a wonderful family who we all get along most of the time. They all have faith. And things are good. Things are good. Why? Because I still see the image and likeness of God in all of us. I continue to preach the gospel, and if I have to, like tonight, I'll use words. And I love Jesus. I'm happy to say that. So that's my story. Thank you.
It's a little bit of a stretch. We'll just be close for a little bit. So thank you, Dr. Ward, so much for sharing your story. I know you used the word boring to start it off and throughout, but the word that came up for me was very full. A very full life, and one where what I really appreciated too was during this reflection, you're recognizing the presence of God, how God was present to you throughout your whole life. So thank you so very much. We're going to take like a 3 to 5 minute break. If you have any questions, again, we invite you to write them down on the pink slips of paper, and we'll offer Dr. Ward a few questions to respond to. Thanks. All right, and we're back. We are back. So again, we're just going to provide an opportunity for Dr. Ward to respond to some questions from our crowd tonight. And the first one is pertaining to psychology and religion. There you go. You're speaking for all the psychologists of the world. In your experience, how does one enlighten the other? Psychology and religion, how does one enlighten the other?
So part of that is that in most science, and I'm gonna hopefully you'll allow me to say psychology is a science. We don't want to challenge that. Has a problem with God, has a problem with faith and belief systems that are not observable and measurable, right? Observable and measurable, right? So how does psychology enlighten it? I think some of the mindfulness stuff that is now going on, the movement of positive psychology, some of you maybe have taken that seminar or have seen that listed, allows us a better understanding of faith systems. Some psychologists can get us in trouble, but for the most part, I think those areas have helped as we understand people and they grow. Now, I'm a developmental psychologist, and certainly there's a whole literature that talks about the development of faith in children and belief systems and how that unfolds. In fact, we do a couple lessons and exercises with that. So we can explain a little bit and help people. Obviously, ultimately, though, we're independent, so you pick and choose what you want to do. So that's this psychologist's viewpoint. You might ask others in my department; they might have a different interpretation.
Another person asked, in what ways do you notice God's presence in the students you teach?
So, image and likeness of God, right? So, God's given me this gift to share. The fact that the students want to learn makes us so joyful, and we can exchange this together. So there's that. I think I've been very fortunate here over my since 1987. How many years is that? 30, almost 30 years, right? It's a lot. Right?
That's much.
Yeah. So it's like, so 26 years I'm in my 26th season. I've had a chance to do a lot of different jobs here and see students in different ways. I've also been able to do things with students. So going on retreats with college students is very enlightening, very informative. It helps me, and it helps me understand the student. So some of you, if anyone here is a junior, anybody a junior? No juniors? You were once. So certainly as my children went through school, and our youngest is a junior in college now, and I would see my children in front of me, my family, And it changed the way I viewed and accepted and understood situations. When again, it's just different. It enlightens you to be open and incorporate people. But image and likeness of God. And so these people are there for a reason. I work with them and for them, and I want to share and make things better for them. Sometimes it's a test, sorry.
They're not easy either.
Sorry.
Thank you again, Dr. Ward. So I think we have time for one last question. One person asked, how much of an influence did your parents have on your faith journey throughout your life?
It certainly was huge, to use Billy's term. We were that family. So 5 brothers and sisters, so 6 of us, mom and dad, and my grandfather lived with us. Irish and Italian families, and very Italian community we lived in. And so we had a row at church. We were that family that had the row. So, dad, mom, and in age order you sat, right? And really, God forbid you didn't do what you were supposed to do. So there's that, and that discipline and that sharing of that. We joke about that now as adults. We would tease mom and dad about that as adults, but that actually is really cool, And so now we do that with our children, and people ask, where are they? Because they're not there in that pew. We were that pew for a while with our kids. I share with you my parents' devotion to St. Francis. They were secular Franciscans. So they made a commitment to live a life like Francis would live, which really meant that they were going to just give and never take. And so, they never had a lot of riches. We never did. We were, a pretty lower middle class family. They made the sacrifice for us to get an education. Once we were out of the house, they made this pledge. And, Dad would do things like he needed new glasses, and he wouldn't get new glasses. Like, Dad, you really need to get new glasses, I don't need glasses. He just damn it to hell to that. But, good Catholic, Irish Catholic that he was. Their faith was strong. Their faith was clearly strong. They got married on Francis's feast day. That's how much they were devoted to him. So that was big. It was huge. It was a great example for us. And we certainly, Mary and I both wanted that for our children, and it really came easy to us, I think, because of them. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say that we always agreed with what Mom and Dad want us to do or how they want us to do it. But they really laid a great foundation for us, and right to the very end, quite honestly. When Mom passed, one of the things that she was able to do, she brought Franciscans and Jesuits to the same altar at her funeral. So, the Jesuits understand that. You might not all understand.
At least it wasn't the Dominicans.
Right. It was close, though. We had one of those. But they were huge in my faith formation, and important.
Thank you again, Dr. Ward, so much for sharing your faith journey and being our first presenter of the semester here at Koinonia and Coca. Speaking of Koinonia and Coca, the next one will take place March 6th, which will again be a Thursday night, 9 o'clock p.m. And we're blessed to have class of 2006 Liz McCaffrey, who now works as assistant director in the Office of Academic Advising and Support. So I hope that you guys can all join us for that one. So thank you again, Dr. Ward, and thank you everybody for coming out tonight on this snowy evening.